Imagine a nation so vast it spans continents, yet unable to land a plane in its own heart. That's Russia's crisis now, as Ukrainian drones cripple its skies, sanctions decay its fleet, and millions suffer in grounded despair. What if the world's largest country couldn't fly its leaders or citizens safely? That nightmare is unfolding in Russia today. Over the past 72 hours, Russia's largest ever air traffic catastrophe struck. Maybe it's not just about drones. In Moscow's colossal terminals like Sheremetyevo, Vnukovo, and Domodedovo, a single phrase reverberates: plan cover. Not a delay, a lethal verdict for aviation. Putin's airspace, once invincible, is besieged by invisible Ukrainian forces. 10,000+ travelers huddle in terminals, smelling stale coffee and fear. Jets on runways kneel, waiting to live, not fly. But deeper shadows lurk in hangar gloom, where Western bands corrode planes with missing parts. Proud aviators turn to scrap. Russia attacks Europe's rails while its own wings fracture. What's next? Russia's skies, a cage. Flight after flight cancelled, engines silent. Airlines hemorrhage rubles. Power blackouts and plant fires fuel homefront terror. Citizens stranded, ticket costs soaring 40%. Is geography splitting a nation? Older jets retire by 2030, regional routes vanish. Trains creep like crocodiles substituting for hawks. Yet, in this chaos, a twist: Ukraine's media claims Russia's aviation crumbles before sanctions end it. Wreckage in forests whispers truth's ministries hide. Who imagined the desperate salvage? Stripped parts feed dying fleets, a cycle nearing end. One surgeon perished in a 50-year-old craft's demise, a systems casualty. Officials deflect, but incidents spike: 66 yearly mishaps, over 60 by October 2025. Engines fail, flames lick, gear buckles. Moscow, Belarus, Reuters, sources expose the stranding of thousands. Sobyanin claims control, but screens went black. Towers muted on December 1. Drones struck 32 to 33 times. Defense boasts, yet chaos reigns. Belgorod, Bryansk, Novgorod, Rostov, Krasnodar blinked. Fuel load diversions disrupt everywhere. November 18, 24th, skies shut over the capital. No landing in Moscow, a territory giant's echo. Ukraine targets not sites, but sanity's illusion. Airports close to abort danger, bleeding billions in losses. What desperate act to counter? Russia targets Europe's paths, mirroring the siege. But its fleet gambles on each takeoff. In this uncertainty, how does the Kremlin hold? Without secure skies, safe planes, open hubs, it clings to fear, yet whispers grow that boundaries dissolve. Fuel air reeks, sirens wail at night. Touch the cold metal of idle jets, feel the isolation biting. Is the slow rot inevitable? Spares vanish, certainties erode. Presidential confessions admit 340 jets outgoing by 2030. Superjet 100 engines expire, MC-21 project stalls. Airlines investigated, routes scrapped, trains the only way, grinding days across vast lands. Ukraine's view: Russia reverts to imperial lethargy, divided not united. How far will the break go? Panic rises with blockades, plans to reopen southern fields mocking reality. Nikitin dreams of Anapa, Belgorod open, but drones patrol. Airspace, combat zone. Not corridor. Aviation gasps. Can Russia reclaim its heights, or is the fallout endless? As passengers depart on foot, a bitter wind blows change. Was this foreseen? The Russian Defense Ministry boasted of intercepting 32 to 33 Ukrainian unmanned aerial vehicles, yet on the ground, raw data exposed pure turmoil. This bold strike zeroed in on zones the Kremlin deemed untouchable. Imagine the sudden blare of alarms piercing the crisp winter air at key airports like Belgorod, Bryansk, Novgorod, Rostov, and even Krasnodar sky. Emergency protocols kicked in fast. Lights flickered, engines hummed to a tense halt. But the true jolt? It slammed right into Moscow's core, rippling through its vital defenses. On that chilling night of December 1st, Moscow's airports and the entire capital zone ground to a complete stop. All at once. This wasn't some local hiccup. No. It was a full nationwide lockdown. Screens went dark in the control rooms, the hum of radios faded to eerie silence. Picture the confusion, thousands of travelers frozen in vast terminals, the stale scent of fast food mixing with rising sweat, announcements crackling into nothing. Moscow's lifeline hubs, Sheremetyevo, Domodedovo, and Nukovo, triggered that secret protocol over and over. Through late November's biting cold, into early December's frost. Especially on November 18th and 24th. Civilian flights vanished from the skies above the capital. Mayor Sergei Sobyanin claimed everything was handled, but reports from Reuters and other unbiased outlets revealed hours of total gridlock in the air traffic. How does a nation spanning 11 time zones, the planet's biggest landmass, end up unable to touch down in its own heart? It's a gut-wrenching twist, isn't it? This feels like Ukraine's calculated play. Not mere strikes, but a deliberate crack in Russia's facade of everyday life. Who could ignore that sting? Of course, airport teams choose chaos over peril. They'd rather ground thousands of flights, feel the weight of cancelled dreams, than gamble with the unknown. Each airspace seal-off sparks a domino fall, delays piling like snowdrifts, low-fuel jets rerouted to distant fields, the sharp tang of jet exhaust lingering unused. Supply lines snag, carriers bleed millions in rubles, the economic tremor you can almost hear in the frustrated murmurs. Layer on those blackouts in Moscow's outskirts on November 10th. The acrid smoke from the Shaturskaya power plant blaze on the 23rd. And suddenly, this aerial stranglehold brews outright dread across Russia's heartland. Passengers huddle in lines, the chill seeping through thin coats, voices echoing complaints that build like thunder. The sheer weight on those trapped souls? Overwhelming. Echoes of disbelief fill the halls, the flicker of phone screens showing endless waits. Yet, as some flights limp back at spots like Tambov and Krasnodar, the backlog chokes everything tighter. What hidden breakdowns lurk beneath these brief halts, threatening to unravel Russia's promise of safe travel forever? The colossal Russian aviation crisis has unleashed chaos in the skies and on the ground. Stranded passengers face endless waits, rising costs, and a crumbling infrastructure laid bare by sanctions and drone assaults. Giant aircraft, once symbols of power, now rot into scrap. Sanctions starve the fleet of parts. Ukraine's invisible siege humiliates the Kremlin. A once vast airspace now traps its own people. Birds soar freely, humans do not. Previously, air blockades sparked mayhem, with millions in losses piling up. Power failures in Moscow suburbs on November 10th, blazing catastrophe at Shaturskaya power plant on November 23rd, panic grips Russia's homeland. Passenger suffering reaches staggering levels. Now, imagine the dread, official figures vanish. Independent flight trackers from Reuters and Belarus reveal stark reality. Tens of thousands of citizens languish in airport limbo, desperate souls clutching luggage, voices echoing in hushed halls, the stale odor of delayed meals pervading the air. Does Russia abandon its people in shadows? Airports like Tambov and Krasnodar stumble back to life. Yet backlog snarls swirl like thunderclouds. This torment masquerades as temporary. But feel the betrayal, states' promises shatter. Security oaths crumble like fragile glass. Economic wounds bleed unchecked. Drone havoc slams flights nationwide. Moscow reels hardest. Disrupted routes spike ticket prices 40%. Rarity breeds the spike. In Russia's endless expanse, 9 hours to cross its heart, such hikes aren't mere inflation. They threaten unity. Isolation looms. Siberia's far-flung folk face impossibility, journeys to Moscow turn fantasy. Trains crawl now, a grueling ordeal spanning days. Gnawing hunger on platforms? Rusty rails creaking underfoot? Rails for the forsaken. Whispers from Ukrainian sources paint a grim mirror. Russia reverts, shedding modernity for clunky empire of yesteryear. Geography cleaves society anew. Social rifts deepen, unseen knives carving irreversible divides. Meanwhile, Ministry of Transport fantasizes reopening 11 southern airports, sealed since 2022. Anapa, Belgorod, Bryansk, Voronezh, Simferopol. Tragic farce unfolds. Even operational hubs blackout. Minister Andrei Nikitin's boasts fade. Ready to open? Hollow words under looming drones, buzzing harbingers of doom. Does the Kremlin grasp this humiliation? Whispers cast doubt. Twisted irony bites. Allies talk expansion, yet core crumbles. What fresh nightmare brews? Imagine a vast empire once spanning skies like a colossal eagle, its airspace the lifeline of Eurasia, now grounded, reduced to whispers of defeat. That's the shocking reality we've uncovered. Russian airspace isn't just restricted, it's a no-fly zone under siege, where only birds dare soar free. Putin boasted an impenetrable domain, yet Ukrainian drones have turned it into a battlefield, paralyzing the heart of Moscow. At Sheremetyevo, Vnukovo, and Domodedovo airports, the haunting echo of Plan Cover rings out, not a mere delay, but a grim verdict for civil aviation's survival. Tens of thousands huddle in terminals, their suitcases heavy like unspoken fears, while grounded planes gather dust on runways, not awaiting takeoff but a chance to escape the shadows. But the true catastrophe lurks beneath. Western sanctions corrode the fleet like rust in a forgotten hangar, stripping away spare parts, turning proud jets into silent hulks of metal. Amid Russia's frantic attempts to cripple Europe, its own wings lie shattered. Over the past 72 hours, the Federation endured its worst air disaster, a drone onslaught on December 1st that wasn't random, it was a calculated assault on its very nerves. The Ministry of Defense spun tales of downing 32 to 33 Ukrainian unmanned aerial vehicles, but ground truth and sensor whispers revealed chaos in supposedly secure zones. Airports in Belgorod, Bryansk, Novgorod, Rostov-on-Don, and Krasnodar negated, emergency lights flickering in panic. The real tremors hit Moscow's core, shutters slamming shut in unison on that fateful night. Screens blanked out in control towers. Hushed voices abandoning posts, leaving passengers marooned in a fog of confusion, the air thick with tension and the faint stink of untended luggage. Moscow's hubs, Sheremetyevo, Domodedovo, Vnukovo, choked under repeated Plan Cover in late November and early December, skies sealed on November 18 and 24. Mayor Sergei Sobyanin claimed control, but Reuters and whistles confirmed paralyzing halts extending for hours. Picture this irony, a nation as grand as Russia, unable to touch down in its own beating heart. Ukraine's playbook isn't just strikes, it's eroding the facade of normalcy, forcing airport chiefs to cancel flights rather than court peril. Each airspace clamp echoes through economics, planes diverted to distant cities, fuels dwindling, logistics fracturing, airlines hemorrhaging rubles. Tie this to November 10th's suburban blackouts and the Shaturskaya power plant blaze on the 23rd, and Russia's front lines brim with dread. Passengers' ordeals mount staggering, withheld stats aside, trackers and Belarusian leaks show tens of thousands stranded, limbs aching from eternal waits, eyes burning from sterile lights. Resumed ops in Tambov or Krasnodar only backhog further, delays snarling like unstoppable vines. Moscow's airports mask temporary woes as shattered vows, citizens duped by empty assurances. Economic wounds fester overtly now, drone-driven disruption spike ticket costs up to 40% in Moscow and beyond. In Russia's expanse, where coast-to-coast flights swallow 9 hours, this isn't petty math, they're fractures threatening national cohesion. Siberians and Far Easterners face ruinous treks to Moscow, railways their grueling lifeline, journeys stretching days on bone-rattling trains. Ukrainian voices hail this as Russia's retreat to 20th-century rigidity, distances breeding divides. Meanwhile, the Ministry of Transport boasts reopening 11 southern airports shuttered since 2022, Anapa, Belgorod, Bryansk, Voronezh, Simferopol among them. Yet, irony stings, even operating fields succumb, hovering Ukrainian drones rendering Minister Andrei Nikitin's claims, "We're ready," poised to launch, feeble fantasies. Aviation's workaround? Dismantling intact planes for parts and others, formalized in 2023, eroding safety openly. Unsustainable, surely leading to depletion. Dmitry Yadrov of the Federal Air Transport Agency confesses grimly, by 2030, 30% of Western jets, about 340 aircraft, must retire. Sukhoi Superjet 100 engines were thin from maintenance woes, MC-21's domestic promise groans under delays and flaws. Logistical doom in such breadth could cancel routes, inflate fares sky-high, grounding citizens domestically. Pledging trains as fixes dodges the abyss. Angara Airlines halts and probes of 51 carriers are postponements, not safeguards. Local Ukrainian reports foresee collapse by 2030 from parts scarcities and risks. Sanctions on hold myth crumbles before smoldering Tinda wrecks and terminal throngs. Truth surfaces starkly. In this vortex, Kremlin ineptitude looms, a ruthless wager against Europe, raiding logistics to mirror terror, yet its unfinished conquests shatter home. As airports falter impossibly, with planned reopenings in Anapa, Belgorod, Bryansk, Voronezh, and Simferopol nothing but delusions beneath lingering Ukrainian drone threats, Minister Andrei Nikitin's eager pledges morph into cruel jokes. Can you fathom a nation's skies transformed into a war-torn wasteland, where jets gasped for breath amid buzzing shadows? Picture the deafening silence of terminals, the acrid tang of halted engines, the cold grip of uncertainty clinging to weary travelers' skin. Is this the fall of a superpower, or something even darker? Beneath the drama of closures lies a deeper, insidious rot gnawing at Russian civil aviation. It's not mere accidents, it's a slow decay, eroding the spine of an industry that once ruled the clouds. Russia forfeited not just aerial dominance, but the power to keep its winged giants airborne. Western embargoes and sanctions resurrect a Soviet nightmare, converting a modern fleet into roulette apparel, where each ascent teeters toward oblivion. No fiction here, but a stark, sorrowful fact unveiled in tragedy. The most lacerating proof erupted near Tinda in the Amur region, where a 50-year-old Antonov and 24 vanished from screens in swirling smoke, screams swallowed by the void. No survivors emerged. Wreckage mingled with twisted trees, metal shards whispering tales of failure. Their touch carried the chill of fate. The 71-year-old surgeon, Leonid Mezel, perished not in mere mishap. He and his fellow victims fell prey to a starved system, bereft of spares, devoid of upkeep, coerced into flight. A system entrenched in Putin's unending conflict. Victims, in essence, of a war's cruel toll. Why prolong this torment? Feel the tremble of overburdened frames, the scorch of overheated turbines, rhetorical echoes demanding answers. Now, Russia's aviation teeters on bankruptcy's brink. Moscow Times analyses expose escalating disasters, stable fuselage casualties mask rising crises, engine meltdowns, blazes raging uncontrolled, gear collapses, catastrophe surging alarmingly. Since 2022, tech-induced incidents averaged 66 annually. October 2025 alone surpassed a chilling 60. Denial of certified parts, brakes, avionics, turbine hearts, starves Boeing and Airbus armadas. Denied access to vital Boeing and Airbus components. Yet, ingenuity born of desperation dismantles functioning aircraft, repurposing pieces for flight, a 2023 official stamp questioning safety outright. But twist, this brilliant fix harbors unforeseen menace, foretelling a future of barren hangars, no wings left to plunder. The illusion shatters further, revealing how sanctions aren't just roadblocks, they're silent assassins dismantling the empire's reach. What if this engineered patchwork hastens the end? Sensory onslaught hits, the whine of fraying wires, the bitter odor of corroding alloys, the shudder of patched frames under strain. Can a nation risk its skyward dreams on stolen parts? Hold your breath, because what follows pivots everything we've uncovered so far. Airports in ruin despite grandiose reopening dreams for Anapa, Belgorod, Bryansk, Voronezh, and Simferopol, with Minister Andrei Nikitin's confident we're set, eager to soar, dissolving like smoke under Ukrainian drone specters. Have you ever stood amidst the roar of a failing engine? Felt the heat of impending disaster scorch your skin, and wondered if this is the moment Russia's mighty aviation crumbles entirely? Unbeknownst to many, that desperate plane plundering in 2023 wasn't the lifeline, it was a ticking bomb. Eventual depletion of usable remnants paints a bleak canvas. Dmitry Yedrov's stark admission, as head of the Federal Air Transport Agency, lays bare the apocalypse. By 2030, 30% of Western jets, roughly 340 aircraft, face obsolescence. Worrying fans? Engines for the Sukhoi Superjet 100 falter, maintenance nightmares pushing them to their limits. Even the touted MC-21, hailed as homegrown, sputters through delays and flaws, revealing a logistical quagmire in Russia's vast realm. Planes retiring en masse could erase regional links, send prices skyrocketing, trapping citizens in isolated pockets. Shunting to trains? A feeble veil over aviation's frailty. Angara Airlines grounding fleets, probing 51 carriers, no safety crusade, just delaying the apocalypse. Why delude with fixes when the core decays? Ukrainian insights predict total implosion before 2030, spares absence and hazards converging. Sanctions tales of futility burst amid Tinda's charred confines and Moscow's stranded multitudes, exposing the farce. Aviation's facade crumbles, could this masked fragility birth unprecedented upheaval? Breathe the stench of neglect, taste the metallic dread, suddenly, perspective shifts, not drones alone, but self-inflicted wounds define the destitution. Suddenly, the bigger gamble emerges, Kremlin fecklessness drives vengeful strikes on Europe's veins, mirroring chaos back home. Stuck in skies nowhere, Russia flails, drones dictating the new order. What secrets lurk in that final silence? Who truly controls the next ascent? Last week's chaos showed Russia's aviation crumbling under technical failures. Incidents from technical problems soared to an average of 66 per year since 2022. By October 2025, that figure topped 60 already. Why? Because Russia can't get certified spare parts, brakes, avionics, or engine turbine parts for Boeing and Airbus planes. And spare parts vanish like ghosts in the night. Imagine yourself as a pilot in that very crisis. Feel the stale smell of burnt rubber in the cockpit. Hear the low hum of failing engines. Touch the cold sweat on your palms as warnings blare. Do you really think you could take off without wondering if this flight might end in flames? Russia thought it could cheat this game. Stripping parts from one plane to keep another aloft? Officially blessed in 2023, this move laughed in the face of safety. Futile, isn't it? Soon, no parts left to scavenge. A nightmare looming for pilots and passengers alike. Dmitry Yedrov, head of the Federal Air Transport Agency, spilled the truth in a moment of rare honesty. By 2030, 30% of Russia's Western-built jets, around 340 aircraft total, will be grounded for good. Engines on Sukhoi Superjet 100s? Wearing out fast, maintenance a distant dream. The MC-21, pitched as homegrown pride, stumbles with delays and flaws. For a nation this vast, this spells logistical doom. Retire those planes, and what? Routes vanish, fares explode, trapping people in their own land. Train rides take days instead, a mockery of progress. Angara Airlines grounded operations. 51 carriers under scrutiny. These aren't safeguards, they're delays hiding collapse. Ukrainian sources whisper, Russia's aviation might implode before 2030 from part shortages and dangers. Sanctions, they claim, dismantled the facade. Wreckage smolders in Siberian forests. Thousands stranded in Moscow terminals, voices echoing in despair. Proof undeniable. So, what's Putin's regime up to? Sky unsecured, planes unsafe, airports shuttered, yet they strike Europe's transport veins for balance. Like a rowdy bully breaking windows to avenge a scraped knee. What if this gamble backfires? Leaves Russia stranded, isolated, its skies silent as tombs. And in this winding path of ruin, a twist lurks. Could Russia's own siege turn the world's view? What ugly truth waits in the dark? Imagine a vast empire, once soaring through the clouds, now grounded in desperation. Could Russia's skies truly be sealing their own fate? In the echoing terminals of Moscow, whispers of collapse grow louder, as sanctions tighten like an iron vice around every smuggling attempt. Russian firms, scrambling to sneak vital parts from the West, now face a blockade so fierce it feels like the walls are closing in. The chill of winter air seeps through cracked hangar doors, carrying the metallic tang of rust and defeat. But why chase forbidden cargo when your own wings are crumbling? This isn't strength, it's a fatal misstep, priorities twisted like a stalled engine in the fog. Recapping the shadows closing in, Russia's sabotage bids against Europe only invite harsher sanctions, blinding their pilots and dooming their fleet further, turning bold moves into desperate bluffs. As those efforts falter, a deeper unraveling takes hold. Feel the tremor in the boardroom air, thick with the scent of stale coffee and mounting dread. Have Moscow's leaders just handed their enemies the winning hand? Russian companies, driven by sheer survival instinct, attempt to slip Western components past invisible borders, only to slam into an economic wall that's growing taller by the day. These smuggling runs, once sly shadows in the night, now scream of vulnerability, the cold sweat of exposure dripping from every failed deal. It's not a display of power, but a glaring error, resources poured into European disruptions while homegrown aviation gasps for air. Picture Putin, eyes fixed on plunging the continent into chaos, yet transforming his nation into a relic of the 1800s, endless trails on foot, no swift flights to bind the land. The irony bites like frost on bare skin, while plotting to derail Europe's rails, Russia's aerial spine snaps under the weight of neglect. If this war is chess, Moscow sacrifices pawns to feint, ignoring the king exposed and trembling. Yet, the mate hangs in the air, unseen but inevitable. The hum of fluorescent lights flickers over desolate runways, where the distant rumble of thunder masks something far more ominous. What if the end of an era echoes in every cancelled flight? Airports across the Federation paint a grim portrait, screens dark as midnight, the stale odor of crowded waiting areas mingling with unspoken fears. Sovereignty over their own airspace? It slips away like smoke from a dying fire. Ukrainian drones, silent predators in the night, transform fortified hubs into eerie ghost towns, passengers huddled in the dim glow of phones, hearts pounding to the rhythm of uncertainty. Sanctions from the West corrode the fleet relentlessly, jets once gleaming now heaps of oxidized scrap, their paint peeling like old skin in the harsh wind. Those repeated planned covert calls, they don't just halt takeoffs, they toll the funeral dirge for a bygone age. For everyday Russians, the heavens shift from boundless promise to a claustrophobic cage of terror, aged aircraft groaning on tarmacs, parts as scarce as hope, closures slamming shut like iron gates. Putin's grand visions of empire? They dissolve in the acrid smoke of that downed wreck amid the whispering taiga pines. Sabotage plots against Europe? Mere pathetic flaps, too feeble to veil the crumbling core. Local reports from Ukraine whisper a harsh truth: Russia's flying days are over, survival mode kicking in like a last, ragged breath. The evidence piles high, paper scattered like fallen leaves, yet this aerial exhaustion is merely the crisis's visible scar. Behind sealed cockpit doors, a quieter storm brews, human echoes lost in the roar of engines that may never turn again. As the facts lay bare on the table, Russia's survival era has dawned, marked by crumbling skies and hidden human tolls. The metallic wherein the air reveals only the surface crisis. But behind sealed cockpit doors, echoes of a quiet, unseen human unraveling grow louder, step by chilling step. Imagine this: what if the sharp minds guiding Russia's planes are vanishing faster than the jets themselves? Russian aviation bleeds talent, losing not just wings, but the skilled hands and brains that command them. Picture the dim glow of cockpit lights flickering in outdated simulators. No fresh software updates flow in from the West. It's a blackout for pilot training, plunging the system into blindness. In today's high-stakes skies, pilots sharpen their crisis instincts with ever-evolving digital drills. Lives hang on those reflexes. Yet now, Russian crews drill in relics. Software frozen, maps faded like old photographs, data rusty and wrong. It's like groping through a digital blackout, hearts pounding in the stale air of training rooms. Feel the strain building. The tension coils in their chests, sweat beading under uniforms. This erosion gnaws at their skills, cracking confidence. Crews already frayed by endless alerts now face breakdowns, whispers of doubt and the roar of engines. Why push forward when every simulation feels like a lie? And the exodus? It hits hard. Seasoned captains slip away, borders blurring in the night. Some flee mobilization's shadow, draft papers rustling like threats. Others bolt from safety's sharp decline, the metallic tang of fear in the hangar air. Left behind? Green crews. Eyes wide with uncertainty. Risks multiply in the vast Russian heavens, each takeoff a tighter gamble. Rhetorical thunder, can a nation rule the world's largest skies when its pilots train in the dark? Yet, as this inner rot festers, the Kremlin's pivot eastward promised rescue, a lifeline from old allies. Moscow dreamed big, swapping Western voids for Chinese or Iranian tech, bridges of steel and circuits. But Beijing plays cool, a merchant's sharp gaze over tea-scented deals. No warm embrace here. China hesitates, hoarding its own C919 parts, dodging Boeing or Airbus mirrors. Why? Simple dread, secondary sanctions, a Western axe hovering. Giant firms won't trade global markets for Russia's desperate grasp. Friendship's vows shatter on tech walls, hopes crashing like stalled engines. Smell the desperation now, oily and sharp in shadowed markets. Pobeda and other carriers prowl black market depths, global underbelly layers. They snag fake parts, uncertified shadows, prices gouged like wounds. Unreliable scraps, born in hidden factories hum. This twists the fleet's fate. No more routine flights, crisp and true. Instead, a rogue armada, pirate cabs in the clouds. Every boarding a bet against the odds, passengers' breaths held in the humming cabin. Turbulence whispers warnings, but who hears? As skies turn to roulette, what hidden betrayal from the east seals Russia's airborne doom next? Russian aviation now scavenges for bogus parts on shady markets, prices soaring like desperate bids in a rigged auction. This nightmare turns safe skies into a chaotic gamble, every takeoff a high-stakes crapshoot against fate. In the smoky shadows of forbidden deals, where the air reeks of stale deals and burnt rubber, Russian planes now operate like contraband carriers, pieced together from scrap whispers. Fingers tremble on controls, gripping lever slick with fake promises. The stench of hasty fixes lingers in cockpits, mixing with pilot sweat from endless stress. Hear it, the groan of worn engines, the hiss of uncertified hydraulics. Is your jet a machine of pride, or a flying Frankenstein stitched from lies? Yet, this crisis claws deeper. Why does a nation crash its own future, while hunting eagles from fading nests? Ultimately, this Kremlin's gamble in Ukraine isolates Russia, fractures its soul. Shattered air bridges weaken regional ties, leaving Siberia gasping, echoes of forgotten valleys drifting apart. Now, each flight isn't a symbol of might, but a fading echo of depleting power. Moscow awakes late, realizing it dismantled its own wings in the frenzy to cripple Europe's roars and scramble GPS signals. Feel the chill, icy winds whistling through cracked fuselages. The metallic taste of rust coats tongues and hangars. Who shattered their throne, by toppling their own chair? Aviation's stern law echoes, lose speed, lose height. Descent looms, shadows lengthening toward doom. But wait, a twist that shatters illusions, amidst the fall, whispers emerge from Eastern allies. Icy betrayals under veils. China dangles mirages of tech, yet hoards its C9-1-9 and blockades Russian skies from salvation. Secondary sanctions sting like venomous barbs, forcing Moscow into predatory hunts for illicit gear on global underworld ledgers. Airlines morph from proud fleets to pirate ruthless ventures, each ascent a mortal risk. Sensory assault intensifies, pounding hammers on jury-rigged frames, acrid fumes from subpar oil. Uneasy creaks under footfalls in dim repair bays. Can alleged superpowers crumble from cannibalizing dreams? Here, war's cruel ironies flare, the once vast empire fractures, bonds fraying like tattered wings. Eastern gambles flop, black markets devour integrity. Pilots flee like scared birds, competency erodes, fueling a vicious cycle of breakdowns. Dive into the abyss, simulator screens frozen in obsolescence, maps outdated as ancient scrolls. Pilots sweat through virtual voids, reflexes dulled by isolation. Experienced captains depart, ditching skies tainted by fear and uncertainty. Incompetence breeds chaos, as aviation spirals into peril. Shockingly, banned tech updates blind training, leaving crews grappling in digital fog. Screeching alerts, crimson dashboards flashing warnings. Perspiration-soaked shirts, choking on stress fumes. Rhetorical cry, how does cutting your lifeline sever your flight? This exile scars not just metal, but human spirit, mentors exiled, novices thrust into maelstrom. Mobilization dread haunts, propelling expert exits. Novices stumble through turmoil, errors multiplying like plagues in shadowed clouds. Epic twist, Russia's turn east crumbles, pseudo-allies demand payouts, starving true aid. Beijing prioritizes trade wealth over bonds, refusing high-tech gifts to dodge Western wrath. Semi-allies exploit desperation, hawking overpriced junk. Russia chases mirages of unity, only to crash into solitude. Fragments multiply internally, regions drifting like landlocked ships, Siberia stranded, Far East abandoned, Unity's specter vanishing beneath drone threats. Shattering realization unfolds, every flight now mocks sovereignty. No longer beacons of control, they gasp as dying embers of a withered empire. Moscow's wake-up call rings late, while jinxing foreign GPS and downing distant foes, it clipped its own feathers. Plummeting altitude spells inevitable impact. In aviation's unforgiving code, if speed vanishes, height follows. Russia hurtles down, toward a crash of shattered dreams. Provocative query ignites flames, can a behemoth bound by its own chains, still claim dominance, or is checkmate whispered in the winds? As drones haunt capitals, sanctions corrode fleets, perhaps airspace dominion ends here, for a federation whose sky now cages, not conquers. Phantom terminals in Moscow, obsolete jets as relics. Putin's visions evaporate in smoldering crashes. Sabotage ploys toward Europe? Mere diversions, masking this epic downfall. Sensory crescendo, sirens wail through fog, rotten metal odor pervades hangars. Wheels grinding futilely on tarmac. Dilemma deepens, why bombard allies, while your foundation crumbles? Aviation epic fades for Russia, survival mode dawns. Facts pierce propaganda veils, manufactured crises align with forecasts of collapse by 2-0-3-0. Human toll surges, stranded souls in limbo, economic slams driving fares up 4-0%. Integrity erodes, isolation breeds disintegration. Hidden under siege lurks personal tragedy, pilots unmoored by ruptured realms. Aviation's backbone snaps, silent exodus of expertise ripens doom. Aged devices cripple training, psyches buckle under strain. Fears compound, mobilization's shadow looms. Inexperienced hands grip fate, risking all. Locked from updates, Russian pilots train in nadir conditions, obsolete gear evoking a bygone folly. Another twist unfurls, Eastern pivots betray, tepid trade treaties conceal cold calculations. China withholds vital components, wary of exclusion. Tehran softens terms for scraps. Russia plunges into unregulated bazaars, procuring hazardous imitations. Fleets devolve into rogue outfits, safety sacrificed at fortune's altar. Terrifying echoes, engines sputtering defiance, fake components snapping under pressure. Imagine a nation so vast, its leader boasts of unbreakable skies, yet now, those skies trap its people like birds in a cage. What desperate move does it make next? 347 characters, as we saw, the Kremlin's grand strategies unravel, leaving Russian aviation on the brink of collapse, with sanctions biting deeper and passengers lost in endless waits at dim terminals. Now, picture this, skies over the world's largest country, once buzzing with promise, now silent and strained. What does a cornered power do when it can't shield its own borders? It lashes out, turning the fight to foreign soil. Russia, gripped by chaos in its airspace, pushes back in shadows. Unable to secure its flights or open its runways, it strikes at Europe's vital links. Think of it, a home engulfed in flames, yet the owner tosses sparks next door. That's the bitter irony. Reports from the Atlantic Council and Polish intelligence paint a hidden battle across the continent. With battlefields stalled, the goal shifts, sow fear in everyday European lives. Sabotage ripples out, disruptions on the Poland-Ukraine rail paths, unexpected alerts at Warsaw markets, signal interference in Baltic regions. All threads in one frantic weave. The chill deepens in aviation, where Russia's own hubs freeze under threats. Meanwhile, covert efforts jam global positioning systems and send probing devices toward key spots: Copenhagen's runways, Berlin's towers, Munich's gates, Vilnius's fields. The aim? Make Western skies as tense as their own. Feel the tension, the hum of stalled engines, the metallic tang of uncertainty in control rooms. If we can't soar freely, why should you? It's a raw, vengeful whisper from the Kremlin. They recruit through quick channels. Everyday folks turn to tasks via simple apps, a gig here, a shadow job there. The plan: fracture alliances, whisper that conflict knocks at home doors, erode backing for distant allies. But wait, does this frenzy unite or divide? Rheumatic winds shift. Such moves snare Russia tighter. Poland's sharp responses and Europe's watchful eyes close in, like fog rolling over a trapped ship. Hear the creak of tightening nets. These disruptions hand opponents fuel for stricter measures. Probing foreign air lanes invites barriers that could shatter what's left of Russia's fleet. The air grows heavy with regret. As retaliation builds, one question haunts: will this gamble ground an empire for good? In the previous segment, we uncovered how Russia's aviation sector is crumbling under sanctions and drone strikes, with passengers stranded in chaos and experts warning of imminent technical bankruptcy by 2030. Ever wondered what a superpower does when it can't secure its own skies or keep its planes aloft? Picture Putin's Russia, wings clipped by its own flaws, lashing out like a cornered beast. Unable to conquer Ukraine on the battlefield, it now drags the war into Europe's daily grind, sowing chaos to mask its desperation. Imagine the acrid smoke of fires raging in Warsaw shopping centers, the eerie hum of jammed GPS signals rattling drivers in the Baltics, or the piercing whine of disrupted railway lines slicing through the Poland-Ukraine border. This isn't strategy, it's the bitter jealousy of a loser. While Moscow's airports echo with panicked announcements and freezing passengers huddle in terminals, fearing the next drone swarm, Russian agents buzz Europe's hubs like Copenhagen, Berlin, Munich, and Vilnius. They unleash their own drones and scramble signals, turning safe skies into a playground of terror. If I can't soar, why should you? That twisted mantra echoes from the Kremlin, a punch in the gut to any illusion of strength. Hired through Telegram's shadowy gigs, these amateur saboteurs claw at Europe's unity, whispering that war has breached every front door. But here's the ironic twist: these clumsy strikes might knot Russia's noose tighter. As Poland ramps up its horizon operations and counterintelligence sharpens across the continent, the Kremlin isolates itself further. Desperate acts backfire, handing the West fresh ammo for harsher sanctions. By poking at European airspace, Russia invites the final lockdowns that could ground its fleet for good. In this shadow war, who's really burning? Is it Europe's infrastructure, or Russia's crumbling house of cards? And could this gamble, meant to cripple foes, actually accelerate the avalanche burying Putin's aviation dreams? The smoke is thickening,